If you want to support our podcast financially, please visit patreon.com/IIMBSB. Also, email us with questions or ideas at imaypodcast@gmail.com. This episode is very much about control and how it's showing up in me and Justin's relationship and how we experience control growing up, and specifically around emotions.
Welcome to If I May Be So Bold,
A podcast about relationships. I'm Dan Epstein, recording artist, Enneagram 4, and ADHD.
I'm Justin Waring-Crane, model, actress, singer, dancer, mathematician.
We'll wire this to that.
It's
We'll
gonna
wire it through the TV. And then,
Are we on?
yeah,
Are we on?
we're live.
Well, just a quick update that I woke up homicidal, PMSing immediately to make myself feel worse. I went into my phone and started drafting an email that I
Oh,
really
right.
don't want to
Yeah,
send.
that's a tough way to start the
It's
day.
a tough way to start the day. I felt not rested.
Did you do the subject first?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
I'm drafting an email in my notes app. So immediately started the day off in a way that was guaranteed to make me feel worse.
Yeah.
And I knew it would. But it's one of those things where you know the thing that's going to make you feel worse and you say, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Whatever that is. I don't know. Masochism.
It's addiction to stress.
Addiction to stress. Just feeling like if I write this email, then I'm going to eventually feel better because this issue will be resolved. But anyway, I'm feeling better now, supported by my boyfriend, my love, but also supported by Celsius.
Yeah.
Cracked a Celsius after, per Dan's recommendation, went to the pickleball court.
Yeah.
Went to the cock-sucking pickleball court. And of course, I felt better.
Why did you say cocksucking then?
I think it's like that is with the spirit of gotta try things. And it's not always gonna be pretty. But I do feel better now. And I'm glad to be recording because we haven't recorded in a while. And there's a lot to talk about. So I'm happy. I like when we get to talk in this way.
I know. It's like, I feel like we got joy from this the first couple times we ever did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we lost it for a long time. And it's only this season that
it's coming back.
We've found fun.
Because we're doing it for us.
And we're able to talk about what's going on with us and feel kind of more connected and lighter after we do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a way, I think, for ADHD people, this is sort of an executive function tool because I feel like it makes us sit down and say, what's going on in our relationship right now? What's challenging? What's supportive? What are themes that are coming out? And then we actually sit down and organize it through conversation, which is pretty cool. I just had that thought right now. Genius.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about your realization?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So no, it's not the new number yet. I'm still working on that. I was up late last night doing calculations, scribbling furiously. No, I woke up the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I turned to you and I was like, you know what, babe? I don't know if this was in the morning or if it was at night. It sounds like a first thing in the morning realization.
I don't remember. Yeah.
But
doesn't matter.
I turned to you and I was like, you know what, babe? And you were like, what? I was like, I'm cringe. I was like, I'm kind of cringe. And it was a sort of a moment of peace because usually I'm so embarrassed about I don't want to seem cringe or be cringe, but I think that gives it too much power or something. And I want to step into that more and just claim that and say, you know what? I am a little cringe.
What does that even mean to you?
I'm still figuring it out. I just think certain things I do that are really dorky, or certain jokes that I'll make, or I don't know.
Not puns.
Definitely not puns. But even there's certain things that I want to come up with examples for this, because I know it sounds really vague and that's hell for people, including me. But that's why I wanted to see if there was any ideas or any examples that came to mind for you, because I've told you stories about things that I did. I've told you, about things I've said or whatever, and you have this clearly vicarious embarrassment reaction, where then I'm like, oh my God, he thinks I'm cringe, but then I'm like, I am cringe. So yeah, it's something I want to explore more. In what ways am I cringe? And just to get to know myself better, and not to be shamey about it.
So you felt like you were kind of denying yourself this part of you for a while?
And also and especially not wanting to seem cringe towards you.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want you to see me that way. So that's kind of why I wanted to say it to you first. To be like, but babe, I just am cringe.
You came out.
I came out as cringe. It was the bravest thing anyone's ever done.
Not during Pride Month.
And I also made me think of that Audre Lorde quote that I love. Here we go.
Okay. Wow. It just got very prestigious on this podcast.
Yeah. Nothing that I accept about myself can be used against me to diminish me.
Beautiful.
I think that's the only quote you really need to live by.
Oh, that is great.
So I'm like, if I accept this about myself, then it's not going to feel so scary. It's not going to rule my life. I don't want my life to be ruled by trying to not seem certain ways to people, because I'm worried I'm not going to be accepted. That's just such a fucking prison.
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking about ways people use humor, right? In conjunction with their identity, I guess, expressions, how humor can be an expression of your identity, right? And I'm thinking about myself and other people I know, where sometimes I've used humor as self-deprecating, or sort of a way to diffuse tension, add to my detriment, right? Or I notice other people I know, I'm a joke, the jokes are that I'm a joke, or that I'm so neurotic, or I'm so insecure, I'm such a slob, and this is not that. But it's interesting for me to engage with, because I'm cringe is something that I go to great lengths to avoid seeming, for sure, which is makes me think of that essay from the Entering the Shadow book, the shadow work, Jungian shadow book, that's about how people are drawn to partners that embody some part of their shadow. So it's you give yourself permission to express this part of yourself, which is not I'm never cringe. I'm definitely cringe with you, but I'm not so freewheeling with
what
others.
What are ways you're cringe with me? Can you think of an example?
I mean, just making I'll make jokes with you that I would never try out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And sometimes they're my best jokes.
They are puns.
Well, but I'm not talking about those.
Sometimes they actually are really good jokes, because they're so out there and they're so silly that they end up they do that pendulum swing where it's this is so unfunny, it's now very funny. Yeah. Wow, I guess this is a comedy podcast.
But I still I'll be in Houston at Dynamo's Cafe on July.
How do comedians talk?
How do comedians talk?
Is there a male comedian cadence?
I'm thinking about in Jewish matchmaking, that blonde, really
yes. She has Tourette's, right?
She has Tourette's. Was she a little person?
No. She was just really short.
She was really short. Yeah. But as soon as I heard her talk, I was like, she's a stand-up comedian. And she was. Yeah. But she's how does she talk? She was I don't know, very on, very you are? I love that. No, that's not, but that's not a comedian. That's just an enthusiastic person. Well, I still feel what are we talking about when we're saying cringe? Cringe is just I I'm giving myself like permission to let my unabashed goofiness hang out, and I'm not trying to send you a message like you should see me in a way where I quote unquote respect myself in this particular way or something. It's not about that.
It's when you're being free. I feel like you're being very free.
Which is interesting because I feel like often what I think of as cringe is like somebody trying something out that actually isn't authentic because they're trying to
seem cool.
Yeah, or to seem like to actually send a message like I want to be seen as this way, and it's just like not to your taste or something, then it becomes cringe, right?
Yeah.
When we were just in the mountains with some friends, and like I was just noticing so many moments where I was like, why do I feel like I have to be funny right now?
Yeah.
And it's like it was freaking me out a little bit because it's like, I mean, I just think for men, so often it's like you have to be funny. You feel like your sense of like your own worth, like going up and down with whether you're hitting or not. I was really aware of that.
That sucks. Well, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the C word. That's right. Control. This has been a huge...
Wow, you're really on sticking to the itinerary.
Because I really kind of know what it says.
Yeah, I guess so.
Not all of it, but control is a big theme that's Dan and I are realizing is so central in the dynamics of our relationship. And I was saying to our friend Becca in the mountains this past weekend, I was like, gosh, I feel like there was sort of a bait and switch that happened with dating you, where when I first met you, like I didn't see you as controlling at all.
Yeah, totally.
Like you seem so freewheeling in these ways of like, I feel like your humor is freewheeling and like the way that you sort of like make these really fun like associations, and like the way you're able to joke and be playful with your humor just doesn't come across as this like, oh, I'm like super controlled. And like our very first date, your shoelace kept coming untied. So like I wasn't seeing you as like this slob, but I certainly wasn't like, oh, this guy is waking up at 6 a.m., like running 10 miles, like doing like keto.
Totally.
I had this picture of like what a controlled/controlling man looks like, and I like never would have associated that with you.
Totally.
And first impressions.
I think like a value of mine is like not having an agenda with people. So I think I was probably communicating that to you. Like, I don't have an agenda. Like, I'm here like in earnest, which I think I was, but
yes.
And like, what I think of is also early on, like, I remember saying to you, like, I want you to have what you want. And you really like that. And it's like, I think I still do, but
not really. I think you stopped saying it, but I actually feel like you still want that.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I do, but then in stress, I do things that are controlling, and I'm controlling myself. And now that we are like in this stage of our relationship and like navigating what is my stuff, what is your stuff, and how do we be in connection and also autonomous. It's gotten messier.
So can you paint me a picture of the history of control, the role of control in your life, and how you feel like that started to manifest for you as you entered adulthood?
It's such a big question.
Yeah, it is. I think just to give a little background of like, well, obviously we know that control is a stress response. And so what was that like, in your family? Paint me a picture of the control dynamics. Just even, we don't have to go super in depth, but just to help people understand like how we got to this moment, and then we can talk about how control shows up between us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in this stage where I'm doing a lot of personal sort of processing. So I'm feeling like, what I say now, I might look back on and like have a different sort of lens on it. But having said that, I think control was just so ever present for me growing up. First of all, I'm the youngest of three. My older brothers are both, like, I would say, quite responsible and like have it together in sort of organizational, practical ways, in ways that I didn't. Like, and on top of that, I was, like, I think probably in a lot of families, like, being the youngest means you're kind of like the least serious. You're not taken seriously, you're taken the least seriously, especially once you get to a certain age, because, you're developmentally behind. And also, like, because my brothers were like those types of competent people, I was like, okay, I'm not needed, so I didn't have any control, like I didn't have any say. And then dynamically, like, I'm hesitant to say certain things about my parents, but I think I'll say control was used in the way I was parented really significantly. So I was taught that, okay, so emotions weren't very comfortable, right? Like, my family, people weren't comfortable letting emotions really come through, like having organic, like, emotional responses to things, expressing emotions. That's something I've said before on the podcast. So instead of that, control was used. So when I think we did become emotional as kids, like, there was sort of there was control clamps that would come down and say, like, oh, no. Like, you don't do that. Like, you do this. Like, you just do this and then we're fine. It was a lot of that sort of parental energy. Like, is that clear? Is that like a clear concept?
Yeah.
Maybe you can kind of
this feeling is
say back.
Showing this feeling really isn't okay. So cut it out, basically. And just cooperate or go along with the plan or whatever it was. But it was just clear that, like, emotions weren't something to be felt. They're something to be managed and controlled.
And therefore, like, your emotional internal responses are not to be trusted. So what do we use instead? If we can't trust our emotions, like, we come up with ways to manage those, or like, what? It could be numbing, it could be rigidness, it could be distraction, it could be I don't know. Those are some good examples, I think.
Yeah. So what happens if you're controlled a lot as a kid? Well, you can become an internalizer or an externalizer. We could talk about that a bit. But what usually happens is the control that's exerted on you then internalize, and you start controlling yourself in the same ways that you were controlled.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think the component that I didn't name just now is that, like, the role modeling of, I'm going to control myself in these ways, and, like, I'm going to be very patterned. I'm going to, like, keep things at bay, so that was role modeled to me. And, like, be very agreeable, be very keep things positive. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about where our control issues overlap and where they diverge.
God, you're so on it.
Thank you. I don't know how this is happening.
It's a testament to the itinerary, I think.
Yeah.
It was intuitively
we
constructed.
did an intuitive outline of this episode. So
yeah, why don't you talk about yours?
Okay. Control is a big one in the way that I was parented, and it was coming through my parents, but the umbrella over that was the rules of the church. So you're supposed to, control your impulses. Yeah. Right? Control your, appetites.
Yeah. And let's say, like, we had your parents on in season 1, but your parents were very much ingrained in a church community, and they met.
Yes.
In, like, that, like, shared sort of identity.
Yeah. So my parents now have really, we love them. They're amazing. They've done, like, a total 180. But at the time when I was growing up, they were still very deep in that brainwashing of, my mom grew up with parents who told her you can't trust your feelings.
Right.
Right. So that's a similar thing to what you experienced of like feelings aren't to be trusted and they're to be controlled.
And yeah, like I know this is your turn, but I'm having more insights. Like,
yeah,
as a child, like you can observe your parents having certain emotions and telling you they're not having those emotions or that they're actually else. So that's also like another like kind of learning of distrust.
Yeah. Like I didn't really see my dad have big feelings. It was more, I did get to see my mom have big feelings, but it was the feelings that she had were so big that it kind of crowded out anyone else being able to have a big feeling.
Right.
So, and that just showed me that like, whoa, like feelings are really scary.
Anna Wintour, babe.
Oh yeah. Anna Wintour looking fabulous in a green sort of satin 2-piece at the open. God, I wish we were there.
Big feelings.
Big feelings I just saw them as very scary. So in my mind, like, yeah, I want to control those things. I don't think I think I could still cry and be comforted. I don't think it was ever like, oh, don't cry or, oh, get over it. Because I think my mom had enough awareness at that point about how she grew up that she didn't want to make me feel bad about my feelings but feelings, I just didn't know how to work with my feelings. So they always just felt so scary, and like any kind of like negative feelings like shame or guilt or anger. Well, anger definitely wasn't allowed to feel angry because my mom wasn't allowed to feel angry. Or when she was angry, it was completely terrifying to be around.
What it looked like.
Then I'm like, I don't want to be terrifying. What did it look like?
I relate to that, by the way.
Just like she would, it would happen very rarely, but she would lose it.
That was like my mom.
She would kind of snap. So because she was living in a way where she was people pleasing. So then she became resentful. So then you're resentful for long enough. Eventually it erupts in this very scary way. Right.
It's almost like, yeah, you become her oppressor. Because like as a child, she was like having to be silenced in these ways and like it reaches a boiling point. So it's like almost like she's getting pushed to that place. I don't know. Maybe this is
by me.
Yeah, or by whatever is. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you and I have in common is we are both internalizers.
Meaning
we take on the problems so like if someone in our family was not comfortable with anger, we became uncomfortable with anger. Or if control was used to keep us in line, we started to do that work on ourselves. So
yeah, and also internalizers are like they tend to like be like, I need to improve this in myself rather than like nobody's getting this right. Like this is bullshit, or like seeking external fixes.
Yeah,
as much.
Yeah, so we're both internalizers. We're both intellectualizers.
Yeah. Big time.
And that's one reason.
We're very good at like talking about the ideas that surround our issues and not as good about just like guttural sort of responding.
Yeah. And the talking about it is helpful to an extent, but it can only take you so far. And that's, I think, partly why ACA 12 and 12-step has been so appealing, because people go and they, or
let it rip.
They let it rip and they're like, I'm so pissed about this. This is so fucked up. Like I'm suffering like crazy, Yeah. And then we're like, oh wow, that's something I could do. I get to do that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And they're also not masking.
No.
Which is
that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like I don't want to feel like I have to hide my feelings anymore.
Yeah.
It's hell.
Masking being like, I have these problems, but you're like kind of presenting as like you have it really put together. Like people share and they're like, fuck, like this is no joke.
As an internalizer, you really feel like you have to protect everyone else from your feelings and from yourself. And you just feel like, like no one is going to want this. No one's going to be able to handle this. So like, I just need to like figure this out on my own, like as efficiently and as quietly as possible.
A lot of this information for me is coming from this book, adult children of emotionally immature parents. Do you know the author offhand? Yeah, Lindsay C. Gibson. No, I'm like, fuck, can I say that? Like, I'm like,
talk about that.
I just feel self-conscious because I still want to protect my family, and I'm like breaking out of the mold of keeping silent and like not identifying what's really going on. Like in ACA, they talk about like the thing that perpetuates dysfunction in families from generation to generation is denial, right? It's like an unwillingness or an inability to, or a lack of resources to be able to be like, wait, what's happening? Oh, this is underneath all of this and has been passed down. So as long as we're in denial, then it keeps going. So like part of the program is like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Dysfunction loves denial.
Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel is like what they talk about.
So yeah, you're breaking out of that mold, and that absolutely is going to come with guilty feelings. But I think what is helpful to keep in mind is that you're doing this in order to create a foundation where you can have a really loving and functional relationship with your family. Like if you weren't doing this, then there would be no chance of that.
Right.
So,
and if I'm not able to have a functional relationship with myself, then very little is possible in terms of my relationships, especially with them.
And to label someone as emotionally immature, yeah, okay, it sounds harsh, but like so many people are emotionally immature. And also we're not,
and it's not their fault.
It's not their fault. And they were raised by emotionally immature parents, right. So they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
So it's not to shame or blame. It's just, this is what it was. And it wasn't good for anyone. And we deserve so much better than that. All of us do.
Right.
So let's look at it. And then we get to start new cycles in our family.
Yeah.
Like, what would it be like to end the cycle of immature parents in this generation of your family? Like, pretty powerful.
And I also think as a third child, I'm like predisposed to feeling less responsible for like maintaining the culture of the family.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it tends to go.
Yeah. That's kind of a blessing and a curse, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Nice. Good shit.
Really good shit.
Wow.
Okay, so you said that you felt baited and switched a little while ago.
Yeah.
So you saw me as something like counter to what you associated with controlling men. So what do you associate with controlling men? Let's get a little more specific. And what were you projecting onto me?
I guess the stereotypes. I was thinking of the stereotypes of like, really rigid about food or like trying to control my food in some way, or being judgy about like exercise or, or like spending habits, and just, I imagine a controlling man, and I think someone who's gonna comment on like, oh wow, like you bought another pair of shoes, or or is like so anal about like getting places on time, or just like,
kind of acting like a boss, like your boss in some way.
Kind of acting, sort of acting like your boss or like your manager. And you don't do any of those things. So I was kind of like, we're good.
Right.
But it's really hard to describe.
And what is the type of person who dates a man like that?
I think, someone who is like super empathetic and understanding, and also feels like something's wrong with them, or that they need to be kept in line. And those people are sort of drawn to narcissists.
Also, what makes me think of is like kind of buying into those types of roles in straight relationships too, where it's like, that's hot for a man.
Well, it's like
to be bossy.
It is, because I mean, it also, that's the other kind of confusing layer, is like, it is hot to be bossed around in certain ways, or like there's that stereotype of like oh, that guy's a dick if he takes you out to dinner and then he looks at the menu and is like, she'll have the steak. But it's like,
you love that.
I love that. It's like so overwhelming for me to look at a menu, especially those menus that are like, the Torah. They're like really, they're long. There's so much writing. So for Dan to be like, do you want me to figure it out? It's like, that's a love language thing for me. And he always like he knows what I like and he picks things that I'm going to like. And it's just, it's a huge, weight lifted. This is what 50 Shades of Grey was like appealing to women of like,
sure.
If we can relinquish control, that's the absolute freedom, blah, blah, blah. But there's, there's something to it. So
I'm imagining someone who thinks all menus are like the Torah. And so they get there and they're like, what's this?
Yeah. What's the thing the pencil that they use?
The yod.
The yod.
It means hand because it's like a little hand.
This restaurant doesn't have a yod.
We don't have yods.
So slowly, like as our relationship has evolved over the past 3.5 years, the control stuff, you trying to control me, it happens in ways that it's very difficult to even describe. So it's more of a body feeling I start to get. And it's really difficult to point to any behavior you've done and say, that feels like you're trying to control me. It's more like an energy that I pick up from you of being surveilled and being watched. And like he's noticing that like I'm eating this thing or I'm drinking this thing. And it's not because, what does it feel like for you to feel like you need to control my energy?
I just feel dysregulated. Like, I think it's like I've never experienced this in a relationship. So it's, I've never experienced this, but it does. I feel like this impulse that I need to like manage something, or like I'm being stressed, so I feel like I need to do something. And I was experiencing it a lot when I was having that bout of like relationship anxiety. And then, so I think that was like it starting to show up. And now I'm in a period where it does still come up some, but I'm more with the understanding that this is an internal thing that is dysfunctional behavior for me.
Are there certain energies that I have that you notice dysregulate you more? Like if I'm sad, or if I'm angry, or if I'm stressed out about something?
Yeah, I feel like when you're particularly like sort of all over the place, that
emotionally.
Yeah, and just like with focus, like when your ADD is like particularly like revved up, I guess. I mean, it happens the most on the pickleball court when you start to spiral.
Yes, I think that's where it happens the most.
That is that's
the most pronounced.
The embodiment of like of me feeling like I need to do something to help you like ground or get back into a better headspace or something. That's like
the distillation. Yeah, totally. Which we should talk about more in a different episode.
Yeah.
But we were in bed the other night, and you shared this realization with me that really clarified this dynamic and was so validating because it helped me understand why I had been feeling kind of just taken for granted at times, or like you had forgotten that you're dating this incredible person and sort of seemed like out to lunch about it, or kind of like, oh yeah, like it's whatever. And you realized why.
My realization was there's these times where I'm on edge and I'm feeling like I need to like manage what energy is coming at me from you, or like I feel like, and that is just, I think, purely what I experienced as a child was that happened to me. And so now in our family, I'm doing it to you. And what I realized is, I'm in stress. So like I'm on edge and I'm trying to manage this thing. So I'm actually really unable to receive you and observe and like experience you and like see you when I'm feeling that way, which is sad.
Yeah. But that explains it. It's like, I know that I'm amazing and all these wonderful things as a partner and as a person. So if he's not getting that, it's because he's not present.
Yeah.
So how could he be reminded of how incredible of a person he's with?
Yeah, it's like you're experiencing my inner critic or my inner teenager, or some combination of those two.
Yeah.
That is like, it's huge. Not safe here. I can't really be here. It's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so huge. And then I feel I'm like insecure and I'm like, what's going on? Like, he's not appreciating me. This is bad. Like, what are we going to do? Like, and not really knowing where that's coming from. But so you having that realization, I'm just so grateful that you're doing the work that you're doing, because I wouldn't be able to continue in this way otherwise.
Right.
And I would just probably start to feel so lonely and so confused.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also I think it's very complex in that I think there's these like healing / escape fantasies at play where it's like, I feel dysregulated and I'm like, I shouldn't feel this way. So in the past, I've always used chasing success or like attention or like sexual validation to escape. But now it's like, I'm starting a 12-step program now that I'm in a relationship because I see that there is no escape. This is a thing that I will always deal with unless I'm able to find a path of like healing and like making peace and like creating order. Order is not the best word, but creating like harmony internally.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that, like, why am I so busy in my mind? Like, why am I thinking obsessively? Why am I like, can't sit still? Why am I like constantly in either stress and fear or like chasing excitement? And so it makes sense that like the first step of that is like surrendering to the fact that things are this way right now. And like your experiences early in life were always going to lead you to this internal experience, and it couldn't have been any other way. And you are, on some level, you're not helpless, but you are powerless over how intense that is. And yeah, I really feel that.
Yeah. And that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Our music is by Nightlight. We self-produce this podcast, so please subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps.